Hi there. Welcome to Conversations with OLA. My name is Minerva Perez, and I'm the Executive Director of OLA of Eastern Long Island. We are very happy to have with us today as a guest Chief Kiernan. Chief Jim Kiernan from Southampton Town Police Department is here with us, and I am thrilled to get to talk with him today. And I want to thank you all for watching. Thank you. Chief, great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I've had the pleasure of being able to work with you and talk with you for how many years now?
I can't say, certainly more than a decade.
More than a decade.
15 or so years.
Something like that, yeah. And it's just been a pleasure. I've been kind of refreshed by how easy it is to talk with you, even about some very difficult topics. Yeah.
Yeah, very much appreciate that.
Well, part of the reason for Conversations with OLA, how that started, was to kind of get to share some of the conversations and some of the relationships that OLA is lucky enough to be involved in and learn from the different people in our community, and so I want to share that. So I'd like to maybe throw the mic to you a little bit to talk about kind of how you came into this role. You're chief. You've been with the department a long time. What led you here?
What led me to this role? Let's see. So I'm the department's biggest cheerleader. I can speak about the Southampton Town Police Department for hours on end. I truly believe we have the best police department in New York State, and that's not to say we don't have room for improvement, but we are on that road, and we provide a great service. I love to talk about the police department, so I'm so glad you invited me here.
Let's talk about you.
Personally,
exactly.
how I got to this role. I came from a mental health background. I was a social worker before I was in law enforcement. And actually, to be candid about it, I couldn't pay my bills being a social worker, to tell you the truth. It was, there's lack of funding in that area. And also, it was a family business, policing. My grandfather was a police officer for 30 years. My father was a 30-year police officer. And it was a natural progression. It's something I always wanted to do. So I became a police officer out here in Southampton Town 26 years ago.
Okay.
And I touched every base. I was fortunate enough that every few years I was promoted into or assigned to a different area of the department, which is fortunate for a department our size to be able to move that much. I've touched every base. I was on patrol for a few years. I worked narcotics for 9 years. Went up the ranks, sergeant, lieutenant, captain. I was the executive officer for an amazing person in this business, Steve Skrzynecki. He was truly an amazing chief of police. If there was somebody that was born to be a chief of police, Steve Skrzynecki was that person. He just was an expert in police science and an expert at working with other people. Just an amazing mentor to me. And I worked as his captain for several years. And he became sick. And I did more and more of the operations of the department, and he succumbed to cancer at the very end. And the town board saw that, I guess it was more of an audition that I had operated the department for the time he was sick, and they said, "Well, you're the person we'd like to take over here. Do you want the job?" And of course, I was thrilled to do it. It's in the climate that we're in, that the police profession is in, it's a challenging role.
Your social work, I'm sure, comes into play.
It absolutely does, every day. And in every aspect, of the job that I've done, every role I've had, that has always been, that foundation has always helped,
That's wonderful. I mean, I because you mentioned him as well, I take a half moment here for us to kind of share a bit more about Chief Skrzynecki. He was a mentor to me in some ways as well. I mean, we certainly did not see eye to eye on everything, but his approach and his experience, there was so much respect that I had for that man. It was a heartbreak, when he passed, and he was a tremendous leader. But I think the reason for him coming in at that time was also for Southampton Town Police Department to get to have someone of that sort of stature and experience level and sort of wisdom to kind of come in and really kind of bring that to the department. So I'm so thrilled that you were completely receptive to all that, and it seems like exactly what should have happened at this point has happened. So I'm happy to see that. Yeah. In terms of that, I want to stop for a moment because you bring up a really great point about kind of the climate, how, it's difficult, it's challenging. There are aspects of the job that are certainly life-threatening. There are aspects of the job that are also take an emotional toll, and not just because of the crisis that you see, but also because of a dialogue that's out there in the world or in this country, and sometimes for very good reason. It's a hard conversation because I've spoken with you about it, and there's an ability to speak very truthfully about some things that are happening somewhere else that then have this tremendous negative impact on what might be happening here that is not the same. They're not the same. They're kind of apples and oranges, but they can paint someone with the same brush. It's an unfortunate thing. It's also certainly what Latinos feel, in that there are, people doing some bad things. It doesn't mean that every Latino walking the streets is the bad guy. Same thing with law enforcement. How we navigate what it is to dismember these stereotypes is, I think, the best way that you and I can work together. We have been working together. It's like, all right, yeah, we may have heard that before, but how do we take that apart? How does OLA present information or a training or a conversation with your law enforcement officers? And I've been honored and lucky to be able to do some of that directly, and having the faith that you have in me to be able to get to have these very real conversations. How do we sort of take apart that? And I've really been kind of thrilled. Sometimes I'll have people write down anonymously, what are some ways that OLA could help make communities safer, help you make sure that your job is safer, just make it better out here for our full community, East End, Southampton Town, let's say. And they'll write in some great things, some really great things, and I take those things to heart. And then some of them I share with you as well, as possible ideas. And so I think that give and take is really one way to kind of take apart that aspect of what's difficult about the job that your folks have, is to know that it's not an us against them thing, that it's certainly not the way that I ever see it. And so I've appreciated having that chance to work with you in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have said it better. You put it perfectly.
Thank you.
And you personally, Minerva, as well as OLA as an organization, has, bridged that gap with us in so many different areas. And, our relationship is so important to continue doing that, just what we're doing today in these conversations. I can, and everybody should know the empowering of victims, I just touch on this for a second, that my detectives are probably the best in the county at investigating sex crimes. The reason being is because people like you and OLA as an organization empower victims to come forward and bring these cases to us. And without that relationship, I'm sure we wouldn't be as far as we are in bridging that in bridging that gap that exists in other places. And
Absolutely.
And just the understanding that you have, the way you put it, that it's not an us against them, and it is, this community, meaning the Southampton community, although we have this shadow around the profession for crimes that were committed against the community by police officers, that negativity does translate down, and I could tell you where in a minute with recruiting.
Sure.
But our community supports us. It really, and we feel that. We feel that all the time. Our officers do feel that support, and it helps me as a chief motivate them to do their job and to make sure that they're not looking at people as us and against them. So yeah, but it does. The effect that it does take is that national demonizing of the profession.
Mm-hmm.
We see it more in recruiting,
Okay.
where the young people who are exposed to, all the social media and misinformation
Mm-hmm.
on social media, on all kinds of topics, the demonizing of the profession has sunk into them. And an example of that would be the Suffolk County Police test, this most recent one. It hasn't come out, it'll come out any minute.
Okay.
Could come out today or tomorrow. But normally 35,000 people take that test.
Okay.
And this time,
Mm-hmm.
10,000 people took
Wow.
that test.
Wow.
That's related
Mm-hmm.
to young people don't want to be part of something negative,
Mm-hmm.
and that's an issue. That really
Yeah.
presents a recruiting issue for us.
Yeah, no, I could see that, and that, and I think some of the ways that we have worked together and can continue is kind of like looking at that even within our communities, because sometimes you're not. I think for the most part, you're trying to get people that are out here,
Yes.
but sometimes there might be someone else taking it. Maybe they're going to move out here to take the role or something, but. But I think what is exciting, and it's sometimes frustrating to have 10 different police departments in one area, but the way that I look at it is also it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to kind of get to really put your arms around and really know a police department for what it is and what it wants to be and what its DNA is. Each police department has a little bit of something different to offer, and also they're serving different communities. Southampton is the largest. I think you cover the largest ground,
Yes.
in all of the East End. So in terms of the messaging around that, I know in the past that OLA's worked with your department. I think you're the only ones that are doing the Civilian Police Academy.
Mm-hmm.
That you brought back to life a few years ago, I think when Skrinicki had first come on, or just around that time. That was exciting to be a part of getting the word out on that and getting people to sign up to be part of I think at that point it was like a 14-week commitment, like once a week. I did it. It was really eye-opening and amazing. I got to do the ride-alongs but beyond that, it was also the community of people that were there. I think there was like 12 or 13 of us that were taking this, and the dialogues that we had, the conversations we had, that we didn't always agree on, and then we had, detectives, officers, lieutenants, kind of talking to us about different things. It was a great experience, and I'd like to continue that, but I think, excuse me, to be able to address directly, what are those messages that are happening across the country? What are those messages? Because they're not all just based on misinformation. They're also based on bad actors.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that doesn't have to mean that colors everybody everywhere and every police officer, but it does mean that you kind of address that kind of directly. Well, what is Southampton Police Department about? What are ways that they are able to balance and mitigate communication or power structure or how the community is held, by them and protected by them. I think if you're able to speak directly to those things and have that messaging out there, and I think a great place for that actually is the Civilian Police Academy and the other stuff too, Explorers and all that. It's a way for people to say, wait a minute, that's a different organization. I'll take the test. But that's the place I want to be. Or that you get local people from, that are younger learning about it, that want to take the test to be here, in Southampton.
A great place to get that exact message out was this this most recent, where we sent officers to a program.
Lilta.
And that was a fantastic way to get that message out, because they got to see officers that are exactly opposite of what may be the national, what people may be looking at and saying, wait, those people are respectful people, they're ethical people, they're, and that's what I want to be. That's what I'd like to be part of. And things like that are fantastic.
That was great.
And we have a lot of new officers that are that are chomping at the bit to tell people how good they are and how good the department is, and come and join us. And we have a lot of, the Citizens Academy is a great way to do it and get exposed to us. But we have positions as TCOs, traffic control officers. If you take a position during the summer and direct traffic for us, you get to see how we work and who we are, and there's different ways for young people to get exposed to us.
Absolutely, and even I think I could speak to this, is the little bit that I know about civil service, it's already too much. I don't want to know anymore. It's too convoluted. But it's the path that we have for
Yeah.
many really important jobs, working in municipalities, working in law enforcement. But is that sometimes the provisional hire of a TCO, so you're able to hire someone, and maybe that doesn't mean that they've taken the test yet, but maybe you're getting it's a bit of an audition. They're auditioning you, you're auditioning them, and then at that point, if it looks like, all right, it's time to get this person into that test. And then you might have exactly who you want, and they already have a good understanding of the work what's being done. So there's so many opportunities, and I think being open to them is what I definitely see in your leadership. And so it's exciting for us to keep doing the work that we do. With LILTA, which is the Long Island Latino Teachers Association, they had started doing this youth conference further west on the island, and they were doing it for a number of years and really doing a great job. Hundreds of kids would come to this. This past one was the first time they've done on the east end of Long Island, and so we partnered with them to make sure that they were bringing in talent from the east end, and that's going to be what we do again next year as well. So I'm excited. We'll have you bring some more people back in, but being able to highlight some of our local professionals in law enforcement, social work, law, science, what have you, the arts, and then have them be on panels. One panel was an English-speaking panel, the other a Spanish-speaking panel, because the students that were there, some of them were varying degrees of English, and some were just, don't even speak Spanish. So it was great to have the officers there, 2 different officers, which was awesome. And yeah, and I was there for the men's conference. I was out of town for the women's conference, but the men's conference, the kinds of questions, the officer was getting the most questions on that panel that I was watching. And so there's excitement. But there are going to be those questions, and being able to ask the hard questions and not feel stupid, or that just because you ask a question that you're demonizing someone, or that you're stupid, or that you have some sort of agenda. The open dialogue is what it's all about, and that's really, really, I can't stress enough how important that's been for me to be able to work with you, because we've had some difficult situations. We've worked through them, and I really appreciate that. So I probably would say that over and over again. So that's the kind of where we're at, and a little bit of looking to the future to do more of that. But let me ask you this question. You're the leader of the Southampton Town Police Department. What is, if you were able to encapsulate it in the best words that you have, what's the vision that you have for this going forward? Where do you want to see law enforcement in Southampton Town within the next 2 to 5 years?
Well, we've started on the right path, but I would like to see the police department continue to look like the community. 26 years ago when I first got here, you're talking about a very high percentage of white males that were police officers, and getting that diversity into the department with the civil service rules and recruitment restrictions, difficult task. But we're doing a great job with it, and civil service did do us a service with being able to communicate with our community better when they came up with a Spanish-speaking list. And we used that, and we actually just hired 3 people from that list. The last 3 people hired, 2 are in the academy right now, 1 is in field training. And what we kind of get 2 benefits from that list. 1, we get Spanish-speaking police officers so we can communicate with the community better. And a lot of times we get actual people of Latino descent who look like the community as well. So we get 2 benefits from that. I'd like to see women in leadership positions, mentoring some police officers now, trying to help them study, encourage them to study for the sergeant's test. And so a future Southampton Police Department is going to see women in leadership positions, more diversity in the ranks. I believe we are a leader in training right now, and I want to see that even much more progressive in our training. We made our training sessions more frequent and smaller groups so that they have more repetition and more scenario-based training. De-escalation, you pound that into people enough.
Mhm.
The more de-escalation they have, the more experience they have with de-escalation, they're gonna be able to handle situations better. They're gonna be more in control of their own emotions. So I wanna be the leader in Suffolk County in regard to training, de-escalation training, and diversity in the departments. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay,
That's
great.
what I'm
Well,
looking
that's
for.
wonderful to hear. And we're a thrilled partner in whatever capacity. I think there some of the training aspects I'd like to make sure that we continue with. I think they're great, and we can also evolve them. I get some good feedback from the folks that are in, and we could talk about that. But I love being a part of that vision. I think it's a very exciting vision. We do have at this moment a number that I throw around because it's a real number, but 50% Latino student body across our 24 school districts, and that is a number that has grown over the last 30 years, certainly not the words that people like to use, influx and things like that. It's 30 years growth. It is
Right.
our community.
People are here.
They're here. This is our
This is our
community.
community,
Exactly.
absolutely.
And what I've always been impressed by, which gives me just the optimism that I do have, is how respectful and how much Latinos want to have a strong and healthy police force around them. They recognize how important that is. So the message that I get from folks is not, oh, let's take it apart. We don't need this.
No, not at all.
That's not what I get, And so, we're working with populations that oftentimes are the victims of crime. And when they feel that, wow, I was able to go, and get the support that I need, it is exactly what they need. And the communication piece is key, because some little thing can go wrong with communication, and there will be the assumption that, oh, you don't really care about me, or oh, you don't know what I'm saying, and it's a very nuanced crime, or it's a sex crime, and there's always, when we're talking about detectives, and there's always going to be the language access there. Sometimes the first contact point can be a little challenging, but I think that you are doing more and more to kind of address those first contact points, because that will be when the person decides, hey, I trust you, I don't trust you. I want to kind of close with a little story that I think was a very positive story. We're doing a lot of work in adolescent mental health. And so we have a helpline that's out there 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., 7 days a week, that is operated by our crisis counselors in Spanish and English. And we go into the schools, middle schools and high schools, and talk about mental health and how to mitigate depression, anxiety, how to build your networks, how to kind of just like survive and then thrive. And middle schoolers and high schoolers are just having a rough time. It's a national thing. It's a global thing. But what makes OLA's approach to that a little bit different is that we have relationships like this. So we had a kid who was about 16 years old, and he was in a tough spot. He was texting our line, and our crisis counselors were dealing with this concern that he had because he had put a picture of himself in some app, and he was being extorted. And he was being told, if you do not give us money, we're gonna call the police. We're gonna say that you did this horrible crime, and that's it. And this 16-year-old was freaking out, and he was texting us in Spanish. He'd only been here a couple of years, but he's a straight A student, and he was freaking out. He thought his life was over. He wasn't threatening suicide, but he literally thought his life was over, and that his mother was gonna, maybe be deported, or he was gonna be deported, and the whole life was gonna be just destroyed as a result of this stupid mistake that he had made. And so it was texting back and forth, and with our team, we were able to get him to kind of calm down a little bit, and I jump in because I'm able to see all the conversations. I said, whoa, hold on, this is now a police matter. I'd like to do what we can to make him feel comfortable with the idea that if we're with him and we kind of make that connection happen, he's going to get the resolution that he needs, which is that he's not in any trouble. He's okay. Everything's going to be okay. And not only that, law enforcement can help him understand how to protect himself. Maybe there's more they can do there if there's enough to kind of actually investigate on, even though it's a cyber thing. But he was able to finally calm down. He agreed to talk to his mother, and we stayed with it. It's like moment by moment. I immediately emailed you and said, because I knew where he was, and I said, what can we do? Can we get this person in? Is there, and you immediately said, yep, I've got the perfect detective. So we scheduled all up. We got this kid showing up at the police department with his mother, and I met him in the parking lot, and we went in. It was this great detective. It was like the perfect guy because he was very soft spoken. And this kid was freaked out. The mom was freaked out. And he was able to sit with the kid for a long while. I sat with the mom for a little bit. It was Halloween. And then by the end of that conversation, the end of that meeting time for an hour, 2 hours, all the kid wanted to talk about was Halloween and trick-or-treating. So he had gotten his life back, and all that was important was that. And the mom felt completely supported. She did not know what to expect, and she left that experience feeling that this was a department for her to go and for her to trust. So I want to share that.
Thank you for that, and thank you for bringing that up, because that's what we want. That we
Yeah.
want everybody to know that we're here for you.
Mm-hmm.
We are here for you in your tough times.
Mm-hmm.
We will not shut the door. We will not hang up on anybody. We'll do whatever we can to help people. And I want everybody to have that feeling that that mother had when she left, knowing, wow, this police department's here to help us.
Yeah, exactly. And that's and if people are reaching out, and if they feel like, oh gosh, but I didn't understand this, or I didn't know, it's okay. Don't give up on that. It's like, sure, there are going to be days where maybe you're going to feel like you need a little bit more support. That's okay. You can call the department back. You can call OLA if you feel like you wanted to, but you can don't just go in once and feel like everything's got to be perfect, and otherwise you run away thinking it's all bad. That's not the way we can approach anything. We don't approach the rest of our life that way. And so I also want to encourage people to make sure that they're making that effort to kind of understand who they're living in Southampton town, understand law enforcement, understand the force. Call, show up, even when you don't have a problem.
Come in, we'll give you a tour.
Why not?
You can meet people. You can see who they
Exactly.
are.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
If you've got kids in the school, or that, whatever it is, the open door thing is so important. And I thank you for that. I can't thank you enough. And I look forward to what 2024 is going to bring. There are going to be some challenges, but we're going to get to work together. And that means a lot to me.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today.
Okay.